Got an interesting question here came in on the app. It has to do with what happens when we die. And the person who raised the question points out that sometimes we seem to think we're going to be in paradise, like the dying thief. Sometimes we're going to be in heaven. Sometimes the Bible talks about new heavens and new earth. Are we going to be in heaven? Are we going to be on earth? Are we going to be in paradise? Where on earth are we going to be? Except it won't be on earth. So this is rather confusing. So let's see if we can put a little light on the subject here. The problem that we have when we start talking about the eternal state, that is, what happens after we die, is this. We think in categories of time and space. So we think in terms of yesterday, today, and forever. We talk about over there, but not over here. When we get into eternity, however, we're going to discover that these dimensions of the created order no longer exist. Now, if we think in categories that no longer exist, how in the world do we understand eternity? Or put it another way, how does God describe to us, with our limited understanding, things that use categories that are totally foreign to us? And the answer to that is by accommodation. Accommodation is the technique that we use when we talk to little children. As adults, we want to convey something from our adult status, our adult experience to the little child. But if we use adult language and adult vocabulary, it will be totally meaningless. So what do? So we talk baby language to them. That is accommodation. When God talks to us about eternity, he talks to us, if you like, in baby language. He talks to us in categories that we perhaps can grasp, even though the categories that he is dealing with are totally foreign to us. So what does he use? And the answer is he uses symbolism. Symbolism. So when we look into the eternal state, there's all kinds of fascinating symbolism. Now, some people go haywire with all these symbols, and it gives them a whale of a time just using all their imaginative juices and resources, and they come up with the most bizarre ways of looking at things. There are principles of Scripture, as we look at Scripture as a whole, that allow us to correctly interpret these symbols. So what are we thinking about? Well, what we're thinking about is in eternity, there is going to be a total newness of the whole created order. When the Bible talks about heaven and earth, that's another way of saying the created order. Everything that is, everything that exists. Everything that is and everything that exists is fallen, but is redeemable. And in the new eternal order, all things will be made new. That precisely is what God says. Behold, I'm making all things new. So he's making new heavens, new earth, a new created order where everything is as it ought to be. And this created order that is as it ought to be will be populated by people who themselves are now as they ought to be, redeemed through the work of Christ, inhabiting bodies like Christ's resurrection body, ideally suited to the new environment in the new heaven and the new earth. So if the question is, are we going to be in paradise? Are we going to be in heaven? Are we going to be in earth? The answer basically is yes. Is yes. But if you can't get your hands on that, if you can't get your head around that, that's because we are dealing with symbolic language and we're dealing in categories that are foreign to us. But accept the symbolism, accept the idea, and accept the fact that ultimately, finally, and irrevocably, God will set all things to rights. And he gives us the incredible privilege of participating in that for all eternity in his presence.